Davin currently resides in Michigan with his wife Amy and their 2 children. And did I hear correctly, did you just have another child? No, just the 2. Just the 2. Okay, good, good. With that, all right, let's welcome Davin. Thank you, buddy.
Whew. I got nervous for a second there, like there was something I didn't know. I gotta call. Roger, will you call Amy? Just make sure that she's okay. Just kidding. It's great to be here. This feels like a small family reunion. I mean, I feel like I know half the room. Some of you I see regularly. Some of you I haven't seen in years. And my goodness, it's just great. Dave Parada, I haven't seen you in probably, I don't know, 7, 8 years. Has it been 2? It feels like 7 or 8 years. So much has happened so quickly. So this is because of how this is a great setting, and it's gonna feel more like a fireside chat, no pun intended, than a kind of a keynote talk. So I'm honored to be here to spend time with you. CBRT has been great. I've attended many of these breakfasts over the last 5 years, and it's not lost on me. I have to say, before I start this talk, about 5 years ago, Roger and I had a really good friend named Dan Marsh. Some of you might know that name. And Dan was a fantastic, fantastic human being and brother in Christ. And I attended my very, very first CBRT breakfast, and Rick Warren gave the talk at that CBRT breakfast. Awesome story. I mean, just shattered me. If you guys know the comment cards on who we recommend you have speak at these different breakfasts, right? Dan was a dynamic guy, and he was like, you should speak at one of these breakfasts. You should speak at one of these breakfasts. They need to hear what you have to say. And I'm like, if they want me to speak at a breakfast, I'll speak at a breakfast. And so I'm just thinking how much I'm missing Dan in this room this morning. So just wanted to give a shout out to our brother who's spending time with the Lord and not in the room today. So what I want to share with you today, and I'm going to do this I'm going to give you 45 minutes worth of content in 20 minutes. So I'm going to speak extremely fast, so bear with me, because what I was asked to do is give you some insights as to how purpose has changed the marketplace, what's actually going on in business as it relates to this word of purpose. And then I'll wrap up with a little bit of my personal testimony, which I can't tell in 5 minutes, but I'll try to tell as much of it as I possibly can in 5 minutes. And then kind of a call to action to us as business leaders before turning it back over to Adrian. Sound good? Okay. All right. So I saw this article the other day from the CEO of Hewlett-Packard, and it said, the world has an unhealthy relationship with work. A recent survey found that just 27% of knowledge workers feel that they have a healthy relationship with their work. 27% have a healthy relationship with their work. Now, I just spoke at an event in San Diego called the Culture Forum. I was there with about 100 CEOs from around the world. These are CEOs in a room from around the world, and we did a survey in that room on how many of them felt like they had a healthy relationship with their work. Anyone want to guess what the percentage was?
5%.
It was 15. So 27% of the world has a healthy relationship, and 15% of the highest ranking business leaders in the world have a healthy relationship with their work. That's a problem. The article went on to say that 83% of people say that they are willing to earn less if it means feeling happier at work. And then the CEO of Hewlett-Packard said this: no one should have to choose between earning their worth and enjoying their work. It's critical for companies to foster environments that allow people to excel in their careers while also thriving in their lives. CEO of HP. Now, I read this and I'm sitting here and saying, where are we failing at business leaders that this is the dichotomy that we are forcing people that work in our organizations, those that we steward, to feel like they have to choose between their work and their life, because their work should be a part of their life. I'm going to talk about the difference between work-life balance and work-life integration, but it seems to me that we haven't moved the needle on this at all. I've watched Gallup polls for years and years and years, and I just watched the most recent Gallup report actually celebrated an increase in global employee engagement because we've gone from 19% of the world strongly engaged in their work 20 years ago to 23% of the world strongly engaged in their work today. We've moved the needle, 4% people in the last 2 decades. Does that bother any of you? So I'm going to go on a little bit of rant about this, but this is one of my favorite cartoons that I've seen out there. There was a book in 2013 written by Aaron Hurst called The Purpose Economy, and it was way ahead of its time. And he argued that there was going to be a time coming where purpose would change the landscape of the marketplace, and it has. So this cartoon is so great. You see this tsunami of purpose coming, and there's this corporation that says BizCorp, dry since 1884. My favorite 7 words of a dying organization are, we've always done things that way. Or we've never done things that way. Take your pick. And you could see that you got one guy coming out, he's having his lunch like he does every day. Another person has his coffee. Other guy throws an umbrella because he feels a little moisture in the air. But they're completely oblivious to the tsunami of purpose that's about to come down on them. And then you see the next generation of workers about to enter the workforce with surfboards, ready to ride this thing. And they're excited about it. So you've got 4 generations in the marketplace. You've got baby boomers, Generation X, you've got millennials, and you've got Generation Z. I would argue that baby boomers and Generation X, which admittedly, I'm a Generation X person, for a long time, we fell in this camp. Millennials and Generation Z are grabbing the surfboards. And we're trying to understand what's the difference between these generations. Why do they think differently? Well, let me give you a little bit of a history lesson. The currency of the workforce shifted. That's what happened. How, you might ask? What happened in 2008? Recession. Great recession happened, right? So let me paint you a picture really quick. You had baby boomers and Generation X that for years we were taught, go to school, get a great education, find a company to work for, save into your 401k, your pension plan, work until 62 and a half, collect Social Security, retire, get the gold watch, and then start living your life. How did that pan out for everybody? Not very well, right? So millennials and Generation Z were watching this life that we were living, working 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 hours a week, not being home at the kitchen table, not being at the soccer game, not being at the dance recital, not being where we should be to fulfill our purpose as parents and spouses because we were so consumed in our work building our nest egg. And overnight, they watched half of it fall apart. They watched the homes that they grew up in foreclose in. They watched their grandparents who had just gone into retirement have to go back to work. And they said, I'm not going to do that. So there was a rewiring that happened where all of a sudden time and money shifted. We valued, as a generation, money more than our time. So here's the thing. If I were to give you, I'm going to give you, Davin, I'm going to give you $640,000 right now. How are you going to spend it? Cash, right now. How are you spending it? You'd put it in your business. You're sure about that? Final answer?
Yeah.
Phone a friend?
Final answer.
Final answer, okay. Now, that $640,000 that I just gave you is the only money that you now have for the rest of your life to live on. You can't compound it. There's no interest. You can't invest it. It is literally all you now have for the rest of your life. You can't earn another dime. Now, how are you spending it?
Carefully.
Carefully. Well, here's the thing. Do you know that on average, we've got about 640,000 hours of our life that we spend in our work? Have you thought about how you spend it? Because no matter what you do, you can't add another hour to your life. See, this is what we did. We thought very haphazardly about our time, something that we could never, ever add more of, and thought very abundantly about money, something that we could always make more of. And we were so focused on this and not focused on how we were spending our time. And you can't get that back. And the next generation realized that. And so here's the thing. I used to be a very I admit this. I used to malign millennials. I used to discriminate against them. I used to say, listen, I can't hire another millennial. All they want is coffee bags and beanbag chairs, and they want to come in at 10. They want to leave at 3. They want to go to the gym in the middle of the day. They want to, I can't hire them. But what I realized is that what had shifted was they wanted work-life integration versus work-life balance, meaning that they didn't want work and life to be separate. They wanted, it wasn't that they were lazy, because I will tell you, I meet some amazing people in the next generation that if you can show them what their purpose is, or you can help them step into their purpose, they will work harder than most people in the workforce today if they can use their gifts in a way that makes them feel fulfilled. And they won't count the hours. They will work 10, 12, 14 hours a week because it's not work to them, right? They are stepping into their purpose. And so this concept of balance integration, prior to COVID, it was always about work-life balance. How do I be one person at work? How do I be one person at home? How do I keep these two worlds separate? In fact, I'm going to share a confession with you. There was a time, a long time ago, where I was so focused on business, so focused on work, that I was in a senior HR role. Cannot even believe I'm telling you this. But I actually had a shoebox. And that shoebox sat outside my desk or my office, and it had some Post-it notes and pens. And on the shoebox it said, place problems here. And if you were coming into my office to have a conversation about work, I asked you to place your problems in the box because we're going to talk about work. And when you left, take your problems with you. Now, I changed as a leader, and so can you. God can do many, many things, like change your heart, right? But I used to do that. Why? Because I separated these two worlds. And what I realized is that the next generation wanted more of an integration mindset. How do my home, family, work, career, health and well-being, community, connecting, faith? I mean, we talk about faith and work. For some reason, we still feel that those need to be separate, but we know that they don't, so we can integrate those two things. And here's the beautiful thing. Those who are struggling with how do we integrate faith and work, if we can accept a work integration mindset, work-life integration mindset, then you can't separate that from your life. It's a part of it, right? And so this is what the next generation was craving. And guess what? It's no longer the next generation because we all went into COVID for 18 months and we were forced into this model. It wasn't an option. You had to figure it out. You had to figure out how to integrate your work and your life during COVID. And now we're on the other side of it. And the problem, the conversation that's happening out there about, do we work at home? Do we return to the office? Is it 3 days? Is it 4 days? Is it mandatory? That is not the conversation. It's not. The conversation isn't where you work or when you work. It's how you work. It is how do we integrate, how do we create environments where you can integrate work and life. I'm working with, this is amazing, 2 different organizations that are piloting something. One's in Minnesota, there's a grocery store. One's in Indiana, they're a poultry company. Both of them have abandoned the 3-shift mindset, A shift, B shift, C shift, 8-hour straight days. Instead, what they've done is they have created 2-hour work slots. And employees sign up for 2-hour work slots. If you're a full-time employee, you have to sign up for 40 hours worth of work. So you look at your life, when you have to drop kids off at school, when you have to make doctor's appointments, when you have to do whatever. And some people might go in for 2 hours, they might leave, they might come back for 4, they might leave, and then they come back for another 2. Some might work 6 hours today, they might work 10 hours tomorrow. Do you know that in both of those situations, one a manufacturing company that does poultry, one a retail store, since they've integrated those models, they have seen a tremendous improvement in employee engagement, people not calling off from work. They don't have scheduling issues. They're more productive. Why? Because they have shifted this box that we have thought in forever to figure out how do we move our model, instead of doing things the way they've always been done, into a different way to support the economy we now live in, which is this work-life integration mindset. And if they could do it in manufacturing and retail, you can do it anywhere. Purpose. What is purpose and how does it apply to everything that I just shared with you? Purpose is a combination of 4 things. It is a combination of what you love, what you're great at, what the world needs, and lastly, I would argue, what you get paid to do. There's a lot of people who are incredible parents who don't get paid to be parents, and that is their purpose. That's why it's the least of the 4. So a lot of times we've been taught, well, how do I get paid to do what I love to do? Because if I could get paid to do what I love to do, I never work a day in my life, right? Now listen, I don't know who ever said that, but that is a lie. Because I love what I do, but it is work. right? But I enjoy it. It fulfills me. It doesn't mean that it's not work, right? So the question isn't, what is it that you love and how do you get paid? The question is, what did God equip you for? What are you great at? What are the gifts, talents, abilities, skill sets, insights, experiences, all the things that he has given you in your heart and mind that when you step into a room, he can use you to improve the quality of life of the people who are around you. And that starts at home with your spouses and your kids. It happens in the workplace. It means not putting a shoebox out that says place problems here and being a fully present leader that regardless of how crazy your calendar is, your agenda, what meeting you need to go into, what your emails are, it means being able that if you see someone who's in front of you, that their face is visibly distraught or they're going through something, that you stop and you be a vessel and be present in that moment. That's what it means to be a present leader. So how do you use your skill sets, your gifts, talents, abilities, insights, wisdom to help those around you be better? Where is the most immediate need? When I think that the world needs it, I'm not talking about drilling wells in Africa. I know that we need clean water in Africa. I'm talking about the most immediate need in the room that you are in. If God has you in a place, whether that's in this room this morning, or it's in your home, or it's in your workplace, or it's in the conference room, or wherever it is, what is the most immediate need that is in that room that you could potentially fulfill using what you have? That is where purpose starts. And then start tracking, how has God used that in your lives? Over and over and over, because you will see a pattern. You will see a pattern. People will tell you, you're really good at this. You're really good at that. My 9-year-old son who's going into 5th grade, I swear he's going to be a litigator because he argues constantly at the kitchen table and I lose half of those conversations, right? So he's got a gift for that. Now, I'm not necessarily sure that's needed in that room, but it's very clear. I keep on telling him, you've got a gift in this area. Where are the areas that people are telling you, you know, you really have a gift for this? And are you cognizant of that? Are you aware of what God has given you? And are you asking, how can I use that in whatever room that I'm in? You see, we do have one grandiose purpose for our life. In fact, as believers, it's to glorify God and to enjoy him forever. But we've got multiple purposes on a daily basis. I've got a purpose as a husband, as a father, as a speaker, as an author, as a business leader, as a coach, as a consultant, as a worship leader. I can go on and on and on. I've got multiple purposes. The question is, what's most important now? In the room that I'm in? What's the most immediate need? Which purpose do I need to step into? Because I can't tell you how many times that I think my purpose at work is to be on my phone when my purpose is to be sitting on the couch listening to my wife. Right? All right. I'm going to give you a crash course on the difference of 4 different words that constantly get confused. Purpose. Purpose is your reason for being. It is what you exist to do. It is the gifts, talents, abilities, skill sets that God has given you. Mission. We've heard this word thrown around. Mission is the impact of your purpose. Okay, so when you use your purpose, what is the impact that you have? Now follow me, because I usually lose people on this next one. Vision is the impact of your mission. Stay with me for a second. And then why is your reason for doing it. Here's the difference between purpose and why. Purpose is your reason for being. Why is your reason for doing. I could be very clear about my purposes, but not be motivated. I can know what I'm supposed to do, but if I don't have the motivation to do it, I'm not going to do it. So you need to ask, well, who am I doing this for? And when you're clear about who you're doing it for, you'll find that motivation. So let me tell you a story that brings these 4 things together. This is my son, Bennett. In addition to wanting to be a lawyer and a litigator, he's also very, very fast. His favorite superhero is the Flash, which is why he's wearing a Flash shirt, and this is his bike. One day, his bike was not going as fast as he would like his bike to go. So he asked if I could fix it. So I stopped what I was doing. I went into the garage. I grabbed an awesome little blue can with a red top called WD-40, and I sprayed the gears. And the gears started to go faster. And then Bennett started to go faster. So let's go back to this paradigm. What is the purpose of WD-40? If you were to look at the back of the can, what does it say that it is? It's a lubricant. That's its purpose, right? Okay. So, mission. What was my mission in using the WD-40? To get the bike's gears to go fast. What was my vision? To get him to go fast. Ah, you see now how the vision is the impact of the mission? And my why was him. So, purpose, mission, vision, why. Each of you have purposes. Each of you have an immediate mission that you are called to fulfill, but there's a grander vision that we've been given of the impact that we're supposed to have in this world, and there's a why behind that. Make sense? And that why is tied to a who. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because I don't have a lot of time to spend on this. But there's 3 different types of purpose. There's organizational purpose, there's associate purpose, there's customer purpose. Here's what I want to challenge you with, is that we spend a lot of time talking about experiences, associate employee experience, brand experience, customer experiences. Those things are made up of the intersections of these purpose. The associate experience or employee experience is the byproduct of how well my purpose as a employee aligns with the purpose of the company that has employed me to do it. If I don't see that, if I don't feel like I am coming to work using my purpose or making a difference every day, I'm out. We just saw that statistic, right? 86% of people would take a job for less money for more meaning and fulfillment in their work. So the employee experience is directly correlated to the alignment of individual and organizational purpose. Organizational purpose and customer purpose. If you buy, how many of you bought a product that promises to do something and then it doesn't do it? You have a bad experience. So you have a purpose as a customer that you are counting on that brand or that organization to fulfill. And if it doesn't fulfill its purpose, you have a bad experience. And then customer and associate experience. The product can work, the brand can be great, but if you got an employee that's working in that organization and they are not actively stepping into that and fulfilling the customer's purpose, then they have a bad customer experience. Real quick, I was at a Marriott, and I stayed at a lot of Marriotts in San Diego, and there were literally 2 Marriott employees working side by side. One of them, as I was checking in, literally said, "Hi, welcome to San Diego. Do you have your driver's license on you?" "Yes." "I see that you're with us for two nights. Is that correct?" "Yes." "Okay, thank you very much. Here's your keys. Elevators are down the hall. Your room's on the 4th floor." Next. Other person. "Hi, thank you so much for coming to San Diego. What brings you to San Diego?" "Oh, I'm here for da-da-da. We are so delighted that you chose our hotel. Thank you for being a Bonvoy member. We appreciate that. Tell me, what are you looking to do while you're in town?" And she started asking me all these questions. It was an extremely personalized experience. These people worked side by side. The difference is one stepped fully into their purpose that day. The brand purpose didn't change. Whether the associate was working in their purpose did. And that made a difference on the customer experience. I'll go real quick on this. Questions of the experience economy. Here's the deal. We are all competing based off of whether we provide commodities, goods, services, experiences, or transformation. Here's the questions that these 4 things ask. Commodities are very simple. If you make something, how much do you want? Very quick. It's very transactional. If you have a good and you're putting it together, how much do you want to buy? What's the quantity that you want to buy? If you're providing a service, what is it that I could do for you? I offer a service. What is it that I could do for you? This is how we have traded services, goods, and commodities for years. Those bottom 3 levels of the economy are very, very transactional. They are not relational. The top 2, which is where all of us should live, is experiences and transformations. I just talked about experiences. What is it that you want to do? She was asking me, what is it that you want to do while you're here? Right? What's the type of experience that you're creating by asking questions like, what do you want to do? How can I help you do that? And then the ultimate question, which actually has to do with purpose, is who do you want to become? And how can I help you become that? How can I transform where you are today to where you want to go? Let me ask ourselves, how many of us as business leaders are asking those questions to the people that we steward and employ? Are we asking them, what do you want to do? Are we asking them, who do they want to become? Are we helping them use our businesses to build our people, or are we using our people to build our businesses? Because God gave us our businesses to build his people. He did not give us the people to build our businesses. Who are you helping your people become? The greatest measure of purpose is who we help others become. You have 3 mission fields as a business leader. Number 1 is your people. The people that come to work every single day, either in the office, remotely, or however they interface with your organization every day, they are your number 1 purpose, your number 1 mission field. Number 2 is their families. Because to the degree of what happens at work is to the degree of what happens at home. You have a direct impact on how your people go home every single day, on the type of spouse or parent they are based off of what they experienced in their work. And so if we can create places where people can thrive and step into their purpose every single day, then you know what? We send them home and they give their best to their families rather than giving them their leftovers. Your mission field are the families of the people that you employ. And then finally, and this is where we spend most of our time, is those we serve. We spend a lot of time on the customer, the end user, or on our communities, or on the causes or the nonprofits that we contribute to. But we spend way more attention there than on the first two. And I would argue that we are out of balance and we need to spend more time focusing on our people and their families. And if we do that well, then we will make a greater impact on those that we serve through our people, through the communities that we serve in. This is something I recently saw called the Motivational Response Index. It's really, really great. I don't have time to dive all the way into this, but there's really 3 different tiers of motivation. You've got survival, success, and significance. Most people right now are just operating on survival. You know, they need safety, compensation, training, their workload, their stress level, job fit. Success, what they're aiming for is vision, advancement, innovation, empathy, and authenticity. But what they really want, what they really crave is a purpose, a cause to be a part of. They want to excel in their craft. They want to make a difference in the community. That is the highest echelon of motivation. Bob Buford, I'm going to skip this story really quick. I'll come back to it. Bob Buford wrote a great book called Halftime. How many of you have read this book? This book transformed my life more than any other book than the Bible. This book talks about we are conditioned in this world for success, but we are created for significance. And we have an opportunity to not just help those that we steward be successful, but to help them experience significance in the work that they do and the lives that they lead using the resources that we've been given. This book is what led me to write this book, Finding Purpose at Work, which is, how do we do that? How do we help people find purpose in their work every single day? And some of the stories that I shared with you are in that book. I already talked to you about the difference between purpose and why and how those correlate. So purpose is your reason for being. Your why is your reason for doing. What are the resources that you have? How are you stepping into the needs of others? And who is your motivation to do that? How many of you have seen New Amsterdam? I don't watch a lot of TV. This is one of the best shows I felt. It got a little woke at the end. But in the beginning, it was one of the best shows that I really enjoyed because in the very, very beginning, this guy, Max, he's the medical director of this hospital called New Amsterdam. And he invites all of the surgeons, all of the staff, everyone to come into the auditorium. And he introduces himself as the new medical director of New Amsterdam Hospital. And he says, all the cardiologists, please raise your hands. And they all raise their hands. And he says, you're all fired, every single one of you. And a look of bewilderment, confusion comes across their face. They start calling their lawyers. He says, any department in this hospital that puts billing and profitability above patient care cannot work in my hospital. Get out. And he fires them all. And then he asks all the oncologists to raise their hand. And they all kind of go like this. And he says, how you have tried to battle the greatest issue in healthcare that we've had as humanity with the little resources this hospital has given you is beyond me. I'm hiring you all 2 new assistants tomorrow. Let's be doctors again. And he calls them back to their purpose. Are we calling our people back to the purpose that we invited them to be a part of in the places that we work, places that we lead, the places that we steward? How are you calling people back to their purpose? And then he does this in every single episode. He is one of the most present leaders that I've ever seen. He steps into crazy situations, crazy triages where there's just absolute chaos. And he goes to the most immediate need and he just says, how can I help? How can I help? There's not an episode he doesn't say it. How can I help? And he steps in to the most immediate need in the room that he is in and uses his purpose as a leader. And the shadow of that leader casts through the hospital. And as you watch the seasons unfold, you find that all the other doctors start doing the same thing. And it completely transforms the culture of the hospital. 4 simple words. How can I help? I'm going to go back to this and share a little bit of my testimony, and then we'll wrap up. This is my daughter, Vera. Vera, this is when she was sweet and not 13 and thinks she's 22. Now she knows everything. So real quick, I was raised Catholic, 100% Italian in the city of Philadelphia. So I'm a Philly guy, big Eagles fan. Grew up on Broad Street. And Lions are having a good year this year, by the way. That's pretty, not as good as the Eagles, but they're pretty good. Just throw that out there. So let's see how the season ends. So I grew up in Philly. Sorry, I had to throw that out there. I grew up in Philly in a 100% Italian home. I went to church just because I was told to go to church. And, I knew of God, but I didn't have a relationship with God. And then in 2004, I went to a leadership conference, and there was this pastor that came out at this church conference that was kind of like church, non-denominational church service that was attached to the conference. And I went to this non-denominational church service with a friend of mine, and the pastor comes out, and this worship band comes out. Now, I have always had a love for music. My daughter Vera has a love for music. Our whole family does, but she and I have this thing with music. And I've always felt that God has spoken to me through music. Even though I did not have a relationship with him. There's always been something about music. So this worship band comes out. They play 3 worship songs. Pastor comes out at this conference and gives a sermon. At the end of that sermon, he asks to give our lives to Christ. And I had gone 24 years in my life striving, fighting, grinding. And from 18 to 24, if I had more time, I would unpack this for you, but I made a ton of mistakes. I walked away from God hard from 18 to 24. And I was broken. I mean, prodigal son through and through. And the weight, the guilt, the shame, all of this was just weighing me down at this conference. And this pastor comes out and he says, all that weight, all that guilt, all that shame, just let it go. Just surrender it, because God's plan for your life is better than your plan for your life. God's purpose for your life is better than your purpose for your life. And he spoke on Romans 8:28, where he talked about all things happen for the good of those who love God, comma, who are called according to his purpose. We often put a period there and don't finish that sentence. And he talked about what is God's purpose for your life. And I want to put a pin in that really quick and tell you a quick story and then come back to that verse and then I'll be done. I gave my life to Christ at that conference. I came back, and there was a woman named Olga in our life who we had moved here from Philly to Michigan, and they used to host us for Christmas every single year. And her husband was on the night shift, and they used to go to church on a Wednesday. And he all of a sudden, because he got moved to the night shift, they couldn't go to church on a Wednesday night anymore. So my mother calls me and says, can you take Olga to church, because Georgia can't take her? So I'm like, sure, I can take Olga to church. So I take Olga to church. I've never been to this church. I go in, I sit down with her. Worship band comes out, plays the same exact 3 songs that I just heard in Greensboro, North Carolina 3 days earlier, in the same order. Pastor comes out, speaks on what verse? Romans 8:28. And I look at her and I said, do you guys have a church affiliate in Greensboro, North Carolina? And she said, no, this is our only church. So I'm enamored. God's got my attention. And I'm fixated. I play keys and sing, and I'm fixated on the worship leader who's playing from keys and singing. And the next day I go back to my job at Costco. I walk in, and I'm at my office, and I get a phone call. And the phone call is from the membership desk, and they say, one of our nonprofits has a problem with their membership. Can you come down? I come walking down, and there standing at the desk is the worship leader from the keys from the night before at the church. And I walk up and I just say, dude, your band is awesome. And he's like, my band? What are you talking about? I didn't know he was the worship pastor of the church. I just thought he was a band leader, right? And we ended up having a slice of pizza in the food court at Costco. To this day, I don't even know what his problem was. I don't even think we ever solved it. But I started going to church at that church starting that Sunday, and I then was offered an amazing job offer to go back to Philly and open the first Costco in Philly. And I accepted the job offer. And for a week, I wrestled with that. And God said, hey, if you want to go back to Philly, I've opened that door for you. But if you're willing to give that back to me, I've got something so much better for you here. And I struggled with that decision because going back to Philly was all I wanted. But I surrendered it and gave it back. His purpose, his plans, his ways better than our ways. 3 months later, in a 20-somethings group, I met my wife Amy at that same church. 15 years later, we have 2 kids, Vera and Bennett. And I struggle to think, would she exist? Would Bennett exist? Would my whole family exist if I would have followed my ambitions and what I wanted for my life rather than what God wanted for my life? And even though I made that decision, I still went astray because you know what happened? I started to pursue success. I started to work 60, 70, 80 hours a week in my corporate career. I started to not be a present father and husband. And then one day God stopped me in my tracks. We were driving to church, that same exact church. We were singing worship songs in the car. It was pouring, raining. And I pull up to the church and I put my turn signal on. Car behind me goes around me. Car behind that slams into us at 50 miles an hour. Crushes the car to Vera's car seat. The car seat, and God saved Vera's life. I go forward, hit the steering wheel, go back, break the chair. I'm parallel with Vera, and I'm staring at her, and she is just crying, and I smell gas, and I've got one purpose in this moment: get my daughter out of the car. But I couldn't move. Fortunately, the crash was so loud that everyone in the church heard it, came out, and they were able to get both of us out of the car. She went home unscathed. I ended up sitting in the hospital for a couple of days like this, not moving, having a lot of time to question all of a sudden, what was God's plan? What was his purpose? What was I doing? What ladder was my wall up against? If I were to walk out of here, would I still be, all the things that mattered all of a sudden came flooding in. Would I be able to walk my daughter down the aisle? Would I be able to hug my wife again? Would I ever be able to play the piano again? Would I ever be able to sing again? Would I ever be able to read scripture? Or like whatever it was, all of the, I wasn't worried for a second about what was piling up in my inbox because God stopped me dead in my tracks and said, you had been focused on success and not on significance, and not on the purpose that I've given you. Here's the thing. I'm going to end with this. I'm going to skip the rest of the presentation. I'm going to bring Adrian up here. I was recently telling some friends at church this past Sunday when we were leading. I said, you know, one of these days, when we're playing I Surrender All, I just want to change the lyrics and just start singing, I surrender most. I surrender most. And then we'll do another verse. It'll be, I surrender some. I surrender some. And I just want to see if the congregation notices, right? Because they're going to feel very uncomfortable. Then I'll stop. I'll say, well, I'm just singing it the way we live our lives. So here's the question I have for you this morning. God makes all things work together for the good of those who love him, who are called according to his purpose, not our purpose. What is the sum that you are holding on to that you need to surrender to get to the all, so that when you sing I surrender all, you mean it? What is the sum that you need to let go of to get to the all, so that you don't just experience some of the fullness of God's purpose in your life, you experience all of the purpose that God has for you in your life. Thank you for allowing me to speak to you guys this morning. I'm going to invite Adrian back up here. Thank you.